Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of The Lonely Marketer. We're mixing up a little bit this week, and I'm joined by Michelle Flynn. She's a certified health coach, and the reason I've got in contact with Michelle is mainly to kind of bring to life some of the conversations that I've been having with marketers within recruitment and other people, to be fair, around their well-being at the moment, the challenges that they're facing. And Michelle's done some great work with some of my personal clients, and she's popping up on LinkedIn all the time. So we're going to cover some of the challenges that you may be facing in lockdown, some tips and tricks that can help you overcome those challenges, and generally just have a chit chat like we always do. But firstly, welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you very much, Glenn, for inviting me. I'm looking forward to it.
You can probably explain what you do a lot better than me. So if you just do a kind of, a quick snapshot of your background and what you're up to now.
Absolutely. So 24 years recruitment experience, working both agency side and in-house for big brands. More recently have transitioned over to becoming a full-time health coach. I work a lot with recruitment businesses because it makes sense because of my background. I understand what their lives are like, but I also work with other companies in other industries as well. And the job of a health coach is to basically stop people getting sick in the first place. Yeah. So doctors are fantastic for kind of curing people, but wouldn't it be better if actually we just sort of worked on our stress, on our sleep, on our food, on our relationships, and didn't get sick in the first place? So that's kind of where I come in.
Yeah. And obviously at the moment, everything that you mentioned there has just probably been heightened. It's been, brought to the forefront for a lot of people at the moment. So on a personal level, how have you been dealing with the past 7 weeks or since kind of lockdown started?
Yeah, I think the first couple of weeks, it was, this is nice, because kind of 2 weeks is generally how long you'd have a holiday for. And yeah. I was like, okay, and the sun was shining. And then as time's gone on, the reality of it's kicked in. And I must admit, the last 2 days, I've had really difficult days. I've gone from kind of real anger about the situation to sort of tears about missing sort of friends and family. And I think it's waves, isn't it? Some days you feel guilty because you're having a nice time, the sun's shining and you're kind of able to be in the garden. And then other days, there's just that heartbreak about not being able to kind of go and give your family a hug. So It's definitely sort of crazy times, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I've gone through the same. I keep kind of relating it to the stages of grief a lot of the time. You kind of it's the shock, it's the acceptance, and then it's up and down, and you get the reminders. And I've felt it exactly the same in terms of you don't need to get out of bed as much at the moment, despite having a 3.5-year-old kid who's running around and jumping on bed. And, my wife's been brilliant and got up with him most days. But if I don't need to start work until 8:30 type thing, when you're literally working in your bedroom, like I am now, I don't have to get up till 8:15. And that goes through my head quite a bit. And like you say, I've had terrible ups and downs. And then I feel guilty for having the downs a lot of the time, because I'm fortunate enough to, from a work point of view and most importantly from a health point of view, I'm okay and I'm much better compared to everyone else. But that kind of guilt kicks in as well for feeling bad when I feel like I shouldn't be feeling bad, if that makes sense.
Without a doubt, it's been quite interesting. I do a lot of one-to-one coaching with people, and at the beginning a lot of it was people were feeling guilty about enjoying it, and I was trying to have to sort of making it clear to them that as long as you are doing what you are told by the government, which is washing your hands and social distancing and self-isolating, you're doing what you're meant to be doing. And there's a fantastic quote, I don't know who came up with it, so I'm not taking credit for it, but I think it kind of really sums it up, that there's all this, we're in the same boat. And it's like, we are not in the same boat. We're in the same storm together, but everybody is in different boats. So someone might be in a luxury yacht and someone else is in a dinghy with a hole in. And then someone added to this, which I thought, a friend of mine added to this and said, we've all got to use our ropes to pull each other's boats to shore, which I thought was a lovely way of going, we've all actually just got to support each other at the moment in whatever way we can, whether that is the local community, getting shopping for vulnerable people, or whether that's your colleagues, sort of giving them a bit of a shoulder to cry on, and sort of asking people, are they okay, and actually wanting the answer, because most of the time you go, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm fine, great, how are you? I'm fine. And that's the conversation. But you go, no, actually, how are you?
Yeah.
And then hopefully people will talk about how they're really feeling.
Yeah, and it goes the same with work as well, isn't it? How's work? Oh yeah, still busy. Yeah, but are you really? And things like that. And you know, if anything's going to come out of this, you know, clusterfuck, let's be honest, is that I think people will, and I hope they'll continue to be more honest and more open with people. I am rubbish at being open emotionally. I'm rubbish at being open emotionally with my wife, let alone people I don't know, in inverted commas. But I have been a lot more now. And it's interesting you mentioned community, because that was one of the, you know, it's one of the prompts that made me kind of get in touch with you, is that I started this WhatsApp group for marketers when soon after this all kicked off, and it's got 85 odd marketers in there at the moment, and it's so nice to see people sharing their frustrations. They're sharing it with humor, but they're also being very honest. But people are very up and down, and people are in all these different boats, like you said. And the split is quite it's quite distinct in that group as well. And moving on to something specific, because it's come up in the group a lot of it is furloughed, non-furloughed people, how they cope in, they're going through different mental challenges. From a marketing point of view, being very, very specific here, if you've got any ideas around it, is that there's a lot of marketing people who've been put on furlough. Marketing's still going on within their business though, and they're feeling that's my job, it's still going on. What, you know, you're stepping on my toes, but I can't do anything about it. And I think mentally and emotionally that's affecting them quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually wrote a post on LinkedIn last week about furlough, because everyone's sort of concentrating on the people who are working. And I thought, I'm just going to put a post out about furlough. And at last sort of count, I think I had over 8,000 views on it. And I think the challenge with furlough is that it completely depends on your situation. So for some people, it's the best thing ever, because if you've got kids and you're trying to juggle homeschooling and work, actually, I've got clients that you take that work stress off and suddenly just the relief of being able to focus on one thing.
Yep.
But if you've got people potentially who are living on their own, that their purpose every day, which was to do their job brilliantly, has been taken away, they're really then struggling. You then take the fact that they're no longer feeling part of the team. And some companies have been brilliant, and sort of when I do my corporate talks, I'm like, is there anyone on furlough? Please make sure they're still on the talks. My one-to-one coaching is still available to the people doing furlough. It's like, don't forget about these people. But then the flip side of it was, I heard that there was a pub quiz going on, and all the people who were on furlough, I think it was at lunchtime, were basically doing the quiz from the garden, drinking cocktails in their kind of sort of summer wear. Yeah. And then you've got the people who are at work kind of going, what? Yeah. So I think it's a really tough one. And your point exactly about what happens if your job is still carrying on, how are you meant to cope with that? And to a certain point, my first thing would be, don't look at it. Because actually, if looking at it is going to sort of cause you upset, same as social media, isn't it? Kind of, if looking at something is going to make you upset, don't do it. I know that's easier said than done, because you're marketing, it's your baby, it's been sort of taken away from you. I think for me personally, it's about trying to use your time wisely. So is there those things that you've always wanted to do, that course you've wanted to study? At the moment, I'm studying to become a CBT practitioner, and I'm trying to use my time in between sort of my work to actually do the studying. So for all those marketeers out there who are furloughed at the moment, kind of keeping firstly routine. You mentioned there, Glenn, about getting up a bit later. I think sort of morning routine is a whole thing that I do quite a lot of work on, but sort of go, is there things that you can be going, right, I've always wanted to study this qualification, or I've always wanted to research more about this industry that I work particularly in, what can I be doing to build that knowledge so that then when you do go back to your job, you're going back with even more knowledge and more experience to take back your baby and basically make it even better. Yeah. But I completely agree. It's a tough one, isn't it? You don't really want to see anyone else basically kind of looking after your other half, I guess.
Well, yeah, I think from and we spoke about it, I know your partner's in marketing as well. I think all it takes for a marketer, it can be very simple in terms of just a logo's been kind of stretched out of dimensions, and it just, that trips you up. You're done for the day then. You're like, no.
Yeah.
It was interesting the point you said about the kind of, you know, doing something that you've always wanted to do as well, because I think that point of what you've always wanted to do is important, because there's lots of messages out there and some quite, you know, strong opinions and quite forthright stuff saying, you know, if you don't take this chance to learn or a new skill or a new language at the moment, you're wasting your time and all this. And that's not the right message. People shouldn't feel pressured to learn a new language if they've never wanted to, or like you say, from a marketing point of view, learn how to do video editing if they've never wanted to. Don't feel pressured to learn something, but if you want to, take the opportunity, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I completely agree with you. I think this sort of there was a great video I watched this morning on BBC Two. I can't remember the comedian's name, but he was talking about homeschooling, and he was just like, stop all of you worrying about homeschooling. It's not your kid that's just going to come out sort of, he says it more funny, but your kid that's going to come out of this dumber. All kids are going to come out of it dumber, and all adults are going to come out of it dumber, so just stop worrying about it.
Yeah.
And I think you're exactly right. If you want to do something, I want to do my CBT, I'm interested in it, and this is just giving me a bit more time to do it. But I'm not going to suddenly start learning the guitar. I've never wanted to do it before. And all I say to people is, as long as you get up in the morning, maybe try and have a shower, that'd be nice. But if you decide to spend the rest of your day watching box sets, or you decide that actually you want to start running and the running is the thing that you do, it's about whatever you want to do. Yeah. And there is no pressure to come out of this. The most important thing is that we all come out of this alive. Yeah. And you kind of go, if you come out of it alive, you're winning. Yeah. Anything else, it's just a bonus. Yeah. But don't put pressure on yourselves, because there's waves of emotions, and same with motivation. Motivation comes in waves, and you might wake up one morning and feel really motivated to do something. Mm-hmm. I know I do this, and then the next morning you're like, I'm not feeling it. I'm just actually going to do the essential things I need to do, like feed myself and do whatever work I've got to do. But I think that this is where social media is the challenge, that you're looking at people going, oh, look, I'm kind of baking bread and my children
living their best lockdown life.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're like, sort of, firstly, never compare your normal life to somebody else's perfect, because that's what people show, isn't it? But also, everyone is different. And if you've got, like in your situation, you've got one small child already, you've got a pregnant wife, it's like your time capacity is going to be different to mine, because I don't have children. So just everyone, don't feel guilty. Just do whatever it is that you can do. But what I do say is, please try and find at least 15 minutes a day to do something just for you without the phone. Yeah. So sit outside if you've got a garden, or your front lawn, or this morning on my morning walk, there's a field up where we lived, and I sat there and just like read a book, listen to a podcast, listen to the birds, whatever it is. But each day, just take a little bit of time to not be on video calls, not be on phone calls to family members or whatever it might be, to just stop a moment. Because I don't know about you, Glenn, but I've almost found that I've never been more busy, because suddenly I can't go and buy lunch from Pret because Pret is shut. So I'm now having to make my lunch, and all these things that potentially before sort of you get other help with. Yeah. Now I'm having to find time to do all of that. And you go to the supermarket and you might be queuing 2 hours. So now you've got to allow for the extra time to do what are just day-to-day stuff. So take all the pressure off.
Yeah, I think that, you know, that I keep saying you've kind of got more time, but you haven't got more time, and it's a really weird thing, the concept of time at the moment. Just because it's different, like you say, your days structured or not, or not in some cases structured very differently. There's also the people I like from marketers and the conversations I've had who are obviously still working, but because of what's happened within their teams, the team might have been furloughed, and some quite senior marketers have kind of regressed. So that now they're kind of doing a lot of tasks that they might not have done for many years, and this is only my interpretation. I think that's kind of taking a hit on sometimes of like self-worth. Is like, why am I doing this? I shouldn't be doing this. I've worked so hard to get to a point of a marketing manager, a head of marketing, a marketing director, and now I'm pushing out tweets, or I'm going back to designing PowerPoints and things like that. And I think, it's great that people are still working and still in a job, but I think there's something there that really affects emotionally as well. This kind of regression, like everything you've worked for so hard is it's kind of gone now, and you're back to either where you started. And this isn't obviously just the case for marketers. This is the case for recruitment business owners who have built recruitment businesses for the past 5 years, and they might have built up to 40 people, and now they're down to 10 and things like that. I can imagine that's a huge mental challenge, one, to deal with it, but then to get that motivation to think this isn't always going to be the case. What can I do now to make sure we get back to that point as quickly as possible, as an individual or as a business and a department?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I can see that with my husband.
Yeah.
And the work that he's doing is more transactional than necessarily sort of strategy, and it is difficult because there are days when he's kind of like, as you're saying, why am I doing this? But sometimes I kind of think it's not a bad thing to get a bit back to the grassroots.
Mm-hmm.
They do it, don't they? Some of the big brands do it where the bosses, I don't know,
Yeah.
go and kind of actually work in one of the sort of the cafes or shops, whatever you'd call a prep, to actually understand what goes on kind of at the front line. And a friend of mine is a recruitment business owner, and she's been obviously motivating her team, and then she just kind of went, hang on a minute, do you know what? I'm going to spend the day on the phones, because here I am trying to tell my team, do this, do that, say that, call these people. And actually, I've been so far removed from doing that herself over the last years, because she's been running the business. So firstly, I completely appreciate it. We are all motivated by purpose. Mm-hmm. And the famous book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why. It's mm-hmm. like, what's your why for doing things? And you've spent years building your why to be leading a team, running strategy, future planning, and suddenly you've kind of like reversed and you're doing the basic stuff again. But sometimes I think there can be some joy in the basic stuff. You go, take it sort of, if you're cooking, you might be able to cook amazing cordon bleu, Michelin starred food, but actually sometimes making cheese on toast can be equally as satisfying.
Yeah.
And I think it's about taking the thought, and you kind of go, right, if you're having a bit of a negative thought, which is kind of, oh, I don't want to be doing this, I want to be doing kind of what I was before. Ultimately, your thoughts create your feelings, create your actions. It's the way that we all work. Mm-hmm. And it all starts with the thoughts. And thoughts come and go. That's normal. That's what the mind does. The question is whether you kind of hang on to a thought. So if the thought comes in that says, I've regressed, you can either hang on to that and end up having a terrible day, because then you feel demotivated, uninspired, and then your actions are going to be hating every tweet that you send. Or you can reverse that thought and get excited about the opportunity to actually get back to grassroots, start to interact with customers, start to really see how they're feeling, start to really personalize it. Because as a customer, how amazing are they going to be feeling if they get a response back to a message from the marketing director, the marketing manager, whatever the person is? You're going to feel so much more special as a customer. And then you look at the longer sort of loyalty that those customers are going to have with you. So it's about reframing how you think about it. Is if you want to think about it that I've gone backwards and I'm just posting out some tweets, you're going to feel rubbish about it. Whereas if you go, actually, I'm really getting to interact again now with my customers. I'm going to learn a lot, because what's the best way to understand how to market to people is understand your customers.
Yep.
And you're getting there one-to-one with them. And I think that's a kind of an amazing opportunity to really understand, but also when your teams come back, to understand what your teams feel. And those days when they're feeling frustrated because they don't know what tweets to send out, or they're responding to a bit of negative social media or whatever it might be, you now can empathize with them. And when you give them advice, they're going to probably want to listen to it more, because now you've been doing the job.
Yeah.
So it is a tough one, but we've got to focus on, a lot of us go, what if, and it's a negative. So what if this goes wrong? Whereas if you start to go, what if positive, it just affects the complete way that you feel.
Yeah, I've been trying to say that a lot with, you know, with the people I speak to and the clients, is that you take this opportunity for doing stuff that you might not have done a lot of in the past, however many months, years it might be, but use it as a chance to reframe the strategy moving forward when we come out of this. And we will, rather than, you know, reverting back to how it was before, is take this chance to, like you say, is get into the business, both at a customer level and at probably a consultant level if you're a marketer, is understand stuff a lot more and start working out those processes that will have a much larger impact when we come out of this, because you, like you say, you just understand more, because it's not about dealing with the here and now. It's important, obviously. There's a lot of communications and messaging that we need to get right as marketers at the moment in the current climate, but there is still the responsibility, especially for marketers of all levels of experience, to look forward as well, to see the opportunity of stuff that, do you know what, you've probably been, as a marketer, a good marketer, you've been banging on about in the good times so much, and you've got frustrated because either consultants or your MD, your CEO, haven't had the time to embrace those ideas. Now they have, so use that as an opportunity to kind of reframe conversations, reframe processes, and kind of get your voice heard, I think.
Yeah, there's a great quote from a famous hockey player, and it says that a good hockey player plays where the puck is, but a great hockey player plays where the puck is going to be.
Yeah.
And I think it's exactly that. It's, of course, we need to get through every day, but let's focus on how we can come out of this bigger and better. And we were talking about you setting up this WhatsApp group, which you would never have set up had this situation not have happened. But actually, that it's one of the proudest sort of points of your career and one of the things that you're really enjoying. And you could be looking at that going, oh, I've set up a WhatsApp group instead of doing strategy for brands. Yeah. But what you're bringing to people and that support network you've provided in that community is absolutely invaluable.
Yeah.
And it's also then going to generate sort of loyalty, and people are going to trust you because when the times are hard, you've been there giving them support. Yeah. So I think that there's some fantastic opportunities. I know that, for example, Sainsbury's, the CEO, has been sending out emails, and fantastically worded, really honest emails. There's been a great one from Airbnb, the CEO, with everything that they're going through. And I think it is about going, you might be back writing emails, but that email could reach thousands, millions of people, and that email could make a real difference to people. So
it makes them feel,
absolutely, without a doubt.
Moving a little bit away from lockdown generally, I just wanted to talk briefly about imposter syndrome. One, because I suffer from it so much, but it seems to affect marketers quite a lot as well, in terms of, social media plays a part in it. You've got what are your thoughts around imposter syndrome just generally and things?
So I think a lot of that is about sort of, I talk to people about affirmations, and people tend to kind of think, oh, here we go, fluffy stuff. And I just generally back all my stuff up with science so that people don't think it's all about woo-woo. But there's a guy that he's become a good friend now, a guy called Mark Shaler, and he does this morning qigong session, which is going off sort of, I will get back to my point. But when he's doing this qigong, which now he's got 60, 70 people coming on at 8 o'clock every morning, but he has a little chat whilst he's doing this qigong. So it's not all sort of serious, it's quite good fun. And he was sort of saying, if actually people think that affirmations and positive ways of thinking don't work, but if you tell yourself every day that you're stupid or that you're not funny or you're not a nice person, those words will stick. And it works the same with positive talk. And I think that sort of at the moment, the imposter syndrome, where people are just trying to kind of get everything done and be the best that they can be. Sometimes they think that they're not actually able to do it, but sometimes it's about looking, and rather than kind of going, well, what is it that I'm doing well? What are the things that I'm achieving? And actually giving yourself a bit of credit for the stuff that you are doing. Because I know when I became a health coach, I wasn't fully qualified, but I was able to start taking clients. And I met someone, I don't know where I was, and they said, oh, what do you do for a living, as you do when you meet people? And it was the first time I remember saying, I'm a health coach. And I thought, I have just got to make this step to say I'm a health coach. Because from that point of me saying it, it was like I'd commit to it. And it was like, right, this is what I am. And it's like sort of saying, instead of saying, I want to give up smoking, you say, I am a non-smoker. Or if people are trying to make food choices, it's like, I am healthy. Because the more you start to actually say it and believe it, the more you become it. So if you feel like you're kind of just somehow a bit like a swan, isn't it? Also, which is kind of what Zoom's like. You could be all sort of calm up here, but what you don't see underneath is the legs going crazy. And which I did hear that someone does their Zoom calls on an exercise bike, which I thought was a great idea.
People just don't care anymore, though, do they? All those tips that marketers and recruitment businesses have spoke about video interviews and getting ready and backgrounds and things. That's all gone out the window now. No one cares.
No one cares, not at all. Although I like the video, because it's like, oh, okay, I've got a video call today. That must mean that I should wash my hair.
I haven't had a haircut for ages, but I jumped on this call. I thought, I'll put some product in my hair for Michelle. I think that affirmative thing, it's so important, and I keep telling myself that it's still, but it's okay, isn't it? It's okay to still have those not negative feelings, but it's okay for it to keep happening. It's just the skill into kind of keep knocking it back. The chimp paradox is another thing that it's a book that I've read multiple times, and if that kind of those thoughts are in my head consistently a bit more, I read that, and then it is just a case of fuck off chimp type thing. That is it. And then it is okay. Or I've found, especially over the past, I don't know, time of 7 weeks or whatever it is at the moment, is that just picking up the phone and having a conversation about work or anything, and the WhatsApp group is asking a question, is that you come off the back of it and you do get this, you get this dopamine boost, or whatever the boost might be, of someone just going, don't worry, Michelle, what you're doing at the moment, it's brilliant. And that's sometimes that's all it takes is that affirmation from someone else as well. So don't be afraid, I don't think, or don't be too proud to go and seek that out. Don't say, oh, can you tell me how great I am? But you can go and have the conversation, or you'll be amazed at how much people are willing to, even more so now, to lift you up and to give you that confidence again.
But also, it's kind of habits get built by emotions. They do not get built by repetition at all. It's kind of, you give a teenager a mobile phone and it doesn't take them 66 days to kind of glue it to kind of their hand. It's immediate. But so when you start to get to that emotion, you go, it is about that feeling of success. And I think sports people are a great example of this, is as much as they obviously get plenty of praise from everyone else, what you actually notice is that they have little things where they praise themselves. So Peter Crouch was, I think, the robot.
Yeah.
Or don't know which tennis player it is, but when he does a certain good shot, he does this kind of,
yeah.
And actually what he's doing is that is a way of him basically saying to himself, well done, you did good there. So if actually when you do something good, completely get praise from other people, after I do my talks, I unashamedly contact whoever has sort of hired me to do the talk, and I say to them, if you felt that went well, could you either post a little thing on LinkedIn or write me a little review? Because obviously from a marketing point of view, that is good for me. From a personal point of view, it's nice to be told that went well, the team loved it, yeah. I've got lots of tips from it. But also it's okay to say to yourself, and one thing that sort of I do every morning, which I didn't realise that I did, was that when I get up in the morning, that I look in the mirror, and obviously you wake up in the morning, you don't look great. But my husband was like, why do you do that? Are you like looking at how bad your hair is? And I said, no, it's like a subconscious way of kind of going, oh, I am awake, or, oh, okay, sort of, great, I can walk today, or sort of I've got sort of hands, or
yeah.
some way about being grateful about what it is that we've actually got. And sometimes, particularly at the moment, because like you, I haven't had a haircut either, and this is just getting longer, but the other day I was like, oh, my hair's really long. And sometimes it is just about praising yourself and celebrating the good stuff you're doing, but also knowing that you are learning, and that no one knows everything. No marketer knows everything. Even the world's best marketers make mistakes. It's like, let's look at Apple. They've made some mistakes along the way. And then you look at Greggs when they launched the vegan sausage roll. What an absolute genius move that you would never have expected to have come from Greggs. But you go, it's okay to still be learning, and it's okay to ask people's advice and use the WhatsApp group and be honest on it, be vulnerable on it about how are you doing these things, or whatever the questions are that you might be, what's working, sort of, are you finding your social media traffic's gone down because suddenly there's so much more traffic out there, or whatever it might be. But it's also then celebrate the successes. We all feel better when we get some praise, and then we all want to do more. So celebrate yourselves.
Yeah, that's good. Just before we kind of wrap it all up, just generally now, not let's imagine a post-lockdown world. Oh God, please. If there were kind of, and I'm sure you have lots of tips, but if there were 3 things that people can concentrate on that, you know, transcend lockdown and everything, just generally for their body, their mind and everything, if there was 3 things that you could say, look, do this now, what would they be?
Number 1, focus on getting sleep. Sleep is the body's life support system. There is no illness that isn't improved by getting a good amount of sleep. So in lockdown, be careful about shuffling your sleep times, because our body clock relates to the sun, and it's meant to do certain things at certain times of the day. So if you move your sleep time, it does impact what's going on. So, and after lockdown as well, it's all about 8 hours sleep. It's scientific, things happen, you need that amount of sleep. So people say, I can't, you're just saying I won't. So make it a priority. Second one, eat more vegetables. It's like, try and reduce the processed food. Use this time now to start to sort of learn some new recipes or build some new habits. But kind of no one can question that eating more vegetables are good for you. No matter what diet you believe in following, vegan, keto, paleo, intermittent fasting, whatever, it's all about the vegetables. So eat more vegetables. Number 3, breathe properly. And this is the thing that probably is the most
powerful. Sounds very obvious.
Sounds obvious, and yet we don't do it right. It's like when you looked at your little one when they were a baby, they breathe in and out of their nose and their little bellies go up and down. Yeah. But as an adult, we tend to breathe in our mouth and our chest like this, which basically creates a scientific kind of biological effect in our bodies, stress and anxiety. And I could talk about that for hours, but The science behind the power of actually slowing your breathing down, and I do it practically on live sessions now with people, and it only needs to be for a minute.
Yeah.
If it can be for longer, great. My husband's a trained breath instructor. He teaches people to breathe, and it can improve sports performance, improve sleep, reduce anxiety and stress. There's actually been research around the fact that it helps reduce the symptoms of the virus.
Yeah.
There is so much power in the breath, but the challenge that people have is they try meditation. You want to call it meditation or mindfulness or breath work. It's just different terms for a similar type of thing. But they try it and it doesn't work. And as I said, habits get created by success. So if you do meditation, you don't like it, you don't do it again.
Yeah.
But it's a practice, and it is the best thing that I do. I do a little meditation, not every morning, every other morning, using the Calm app. I do my husband's breathwork sessions. They're on Instagram Live, and it is just transformational, and it is all science. It's all about reducing adrenaline and cortisol, the stress hormones, turning back on the prefrontal cortex where your decisions are made. So just try and do some breathing, which sounds crazy because we think we all do it, and we all do it enough to keep us alive, but there's a difference between surviving and thriving.
Yeah.
And you go, it's one of the differences.
There you go. So sleep, eat veg, breathe. There you
Simple,
go.
isn't it?
All done. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on the episode. There's so many good practical tips there for everyone. Obviously, we got a little bit specific with marketers considering the audience, but I think whoever's listening is going to get a lot out of it. So thank you very much for coming on.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure. I love having a chat.
Good. Stay safe. And everyone else who's listening, please review the show, like it, share it with everyone else. And I'll speak to you all very soon.